Righty, go ahead, Ayan.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for coming to is this our last advocacy meeting, Kathy? Mornings, the morning ones, if I'm not
It's
wrong.
the last of the morning ones. We will have one on the 18th in the evening that'll just be a what happened session wrap up.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for our morning, like Cassie said, advocacy meeting. Just a few reminders for today's meeting. Please use the Q&A box for any questions you have today. It can be found in the More menu, depending on how you use accessing Zoom. Sorry, how you are accessing Zoom. We will prefer that you only use the chat today for only the important links and for those that need it for accessibility. We again prefer that you use the Q&A for questions, and we encourage you to avoid long discussions in the chat because they can be distracting. We also need you to click on the global icon today in Zoom and select if you want to hear today's program in either English or Spanish, as this will help with our interpretation services. It will help us all hear each other speak clearly. And then the last thing, we want to encourage all our speakers today to speak more slowly so that our interpretation services can correctly relay your words. With that, I'll pass it to my fellow MC, Emily, to introduce herself.
Yeah.
Emily, do you want to
Hello,
introduce?
my name's Emily Rogers. I'm the Director of Public Policy for the DD Council. My apologies for the vacuum in the background. It won't be here forever.
Thank you, Emily. And Sean, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Sean Latham. I live in Yelm, and I'm the policy coordinator for Self-Advocates in Leadership, and I'm wearing a red sweater, and I have a blurred background today.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Sean, for actually doing the visual description. I forgot to do that as well. And I will pass it to Kathy Morhashi to do the beginning of our overview of topic.
Thank you so much. So I'm Kathy Murahashi, and I'm the public policy specialist at the Arc of Washington. I'm a white female with blonde hair, and I have kind of a blue and green colored shirt with a background that has a window with some trees in it. So happy to be here this morning. Ta-da! It's our last morning advocacy day. We're almost to the end. It's been a really long haul. We're glad to be here, and there's a lot still happening and a lot that has happened. So today is really kind of wrap up, where we've been, what's going on, what you still can do. So, thank you for sticking with us and being with us this morning. Let's see, I'm going to switch my screen here a bit. So today's topic is really focused on the budget. So let's see, it's been a week ago, about approximately a week ago on the Sunday, the budget came out from both the House and the Senate, and there was a lot to take in there. Just to back up a minute, this has been a really difficult session because for the budget, we've got a bunch of things that are happening. There was, the revenue was down from what they predicted, although in the end it came back up a little bit. We have all the kind of the fallout happening from the federal things that happened with HR 1. They made a lot of cuts to Medicaid and policies around Medicaid and some other programs like SNAP and food programs and such. So really, the legislators came into this session with kind of a mess to have to deal with. how when they have, it's kind of like your family budget, you have less money to deal with, if you're not making as much money, and you've got still your bills, inflation is up. And it would be kind of like, what we say is caseloads are up. It's like you have more family members, maybe you have another kid, and you've got to figure out all your budget, right? And that's what legislators are facing, is like, how do we balance this? And unlike the federal government, they can't print money and just, print out more money, and they can't go into debt. It has to be a balanced budget. So that is where we came in this session. There was a little bit of good news at the very end. Revenue was up just a bit more, which gave them a little more space. But what you will learn is that really this was a difficult session and difficult way that they're having, they have to figure it out. And really they have two options. Either you make cuts, if you don't have enough money, you have to cut your budget, or you have to raise revenue, and you have to go and get a second job, kind of a deal, figure out how you bring in more money. So the budget we'll talk about today does a little bit of both, and does a little bit of both of those things. Both the House and Senate are thinking about and trying to pass bills. They're not passed yet, about raising revenue, in other words, finding more ways to bring in more taxes. The big one that they're talking about is a millionaire's tax for people that make over $1 million a year. So that doesn't hit most of us, right? We don't make $1 million a year. But for those who do, and there's some people that, neither of those options are popular. How about that? Cutting is not popular, and raising revenue isn't particularly popular. So, they're going to take hits from all sides. So I always say I'm glad I'm not a legislator this year, because they have really difficult decisions to make. So that's just kind of the background about where things are. I'm going to do something so I can see things just a bit better. Okay. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about where we are in the process. So, there's a calendar of things that happen during the session. First they have to go through, if there's a new bill, they have to go through the policy committees, and they have to have a hearing, and then they have to get voted out of the policy committee. So a bill may start, let's say it starts in the House. It has to have a hearing there in the policy committee. So a lot of our bills get heard in early learning or human services kinds of policy committees. They get heard there, and then they get voted out by the committee or not. Oftentimes they die right there. Then they have to jump over to the fiscal committee, and they have to go through the same process. They have to have a hearing, and then they have to get voted out. And I should say, back to the budget challenges this year, the legislatures were kind of directed not to give bills that cost money, right? They were told, we're only going to take policy bills. So there's very few bills, there's still some, that have any what they call money attached, that they would cost more money to implement. So most of them are policy, which in some ways is, easier to get through. It's like, these are nice things that we can do, make laws that aren't going to cost a lot of money. And if there was money attached to them, often then they don't make it out of that fiscal committee, right? It's like, but that's where they go to die, because they have a fiscal note on them. So they often try to find ways to make the money, it not cost anything. How can we make that bill work without saying that it costs any money? Okay, so it's gone through the committee, it gets out of the fiscal committee, and then it has to get voted on the whatever floor. If it's the House, it has to get voted there. If it's the Senate, it gets voted there. So if they pass it on that side, And then on this date, we are where we are now, this kind of is in the middle of it. The House and Senate budget came out on February 22nd on the Sunday. And then it goes all the way to the other side and it starts all over again. So we have the 25th of February, it had to be out of the policy committees. And on the other side, in the fiscal committees, was just on Monday. They had to all be out of that. All the committee votes had to be done. So now I'm going to go to the next one. Whoop. We're kind of at the place where the legislators, there's no more hearings. Everything is pretty much on the floor where they're just voting on bills. And then and Sean will talk about this later about negotiating the budget and what's happening there. So we are at the very end. So most of the legislators, pretty much all day voting on the floor, kind of morning till night and sometimes into the night. Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk about the bills now. So if you go to our website, you can see our list of bills, and there's three things. You can see the hearings. Like I said, hearings are over now for the session. You can see the budget comparison side by side. And then you could see the bills of interest. And I will let me do this first, and then we'll go back and I'll pull up the actual bills. So here are some bills that have passed. So we've got a couple of things that we're going, yay, that we passed these bills. So 5863 was the bill that preserved the records at Lakeland Village. And I think they ended up switching it to say also artifacts. Is that correct, Stacy?
They did.
Records and artifacts.
Someone added an amendment to perpetually save the artifacts that are there, which is great.
Yep. And then 2350 is about transparency at RHCs. So that's if something happens at the RHCs and CMS comes in and, dings them and says, hey, you're not supposed to, that they get a corrective action kind of a notice. They have to notify people. They have to notify the caregivers. And one of the legislators at the very end put in an amendment that said they have to notify the legislators too, which we don't think is necessarily a bad idea. I don't know how that's going to work, but that we think that is okay. The other bill that we've been following closely that's a big deal is 2230. The streamlining community residential services. So that bill is about paperwork and audits and other things. That doesn't sound very exciting, but oftentimes the residential providers were having to do the same thing over and over several times a year, and repeating the things from one agency. They have to do the exact same, but it was taking a lot of extra time. And they're saying, hey, if we've done this once, can't we just use the same information for this other group and make this a little more streamlined? So we think that's a really great idea, and they think that'll help save money. And we've often thought, oh, that's a great idea. I think they should do that across like all our stuff, right? Let's make it more streamlined and more transparent. So that is, those were kind of our priority bills, but I can go back through because I think some of you might have some other bills that you may be following. Let me go to my bill chart and let's see if I can do this. I think I have to stop sharing and then we can talk a little bit more. Okay. Share screen. And I think this is it. That bigger. Can you all see that now? Perfect. Okay. If you've gone to, I think you probably have our website. The link to this should be in the chat box maybe for you if you want to go look. I just want you to note that there's kind of 3 things here on the bottom. I'm going to go first. These are our kind of the ARC and the Community Advocacy Coalition's priority bills, and we talked some about them. There's the bills. You'll see the bills that have passed. Second reading means that they've gotten out of, there's some that are in rules for second reading, which means they're still in the rules committee, but they have to come out of that and go on to get put on the floor calendar. So 2319, which renames certain state residential the RHCs, just take the word school out and just say residential habilitation center. That bill is in rules committee, kind of waiting for the next step. There's a little bit of discussion. They added back in on the Senate side. So in the House side, they took out Yakima Valley School. It still says school, Yakima Valley, out of the bill. And then when it went to the Senate side, they added it back in. And now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And there's kind of some back and forth on that. So we'll see. They'll probably figure out when that bill, when they make those decisions, goes to the floor for a vote. Let's see. There's the bill that passed. 1390. Noah, do you want to talk about it? Where it is and what we can do on that bill?
Yeah, this is Noah. Hello, everybody. 1390, it is on the calendar. So it moved out of rules yesterday afternoon. It was pulled as a leadership pool by the Senate Democrats, which is exciting. So we have leadership support. And now we just have to keep on contacting like the Senate Democrats and letting them know that this is a priority bill and that we want to see it pass this year.
That's great. So what's your advice? Should you only contact Senate Democrats or should you contact all your legislators?
Only the Democrats right now. It sounds like it's going to most likely be a party line vote. And there were some amendments to clean up some of the language and the timeline. So that'll be heard. That's the only amendment that is currently attached to it right now. But the really focus is to make sure that the Senate Democrats know that this is a bill that the community and DSHS both support.
Thanks, Noah. Robert, do you have a question? Robert Wardell.
Yes, I do. The one about the institution, the one about the Yakima deal. How did it used to say Yakima school, but why did the Senate put the version on it?
So in the House side, to get the bill through, it was controversial, and somebody was one of the legislators did not want Yakima in there, and he said he would like what we would call filibuster. He was going to make a whole bunch of amendments so that it couldn't get out of committee or get off the floor. So they chose to take it out at that point in time just so that it would pass. So then it went over to the Senate and they thought, well, we can just add it back in on the Senate side. And that's what they did. They put it back in on the Senate side. So now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit, sometimes you have to play a little bit of a game, to get things through. So we're hoping that it can stay, that they'll leave it in on the Senate side. We're just kind of waiting to see what happens. It's a little bit of a back and forth there, right?
Right.
Does that help?
I'm like, why did they want to put school in there instead of just
RHC. That's what we
Yeah,
want. We want all of them to take the word school out. That's the goal, is to take, because it doesn't identify, because they're not schools. They are habilitation centers, and there's not. It's
yeah.
confusing. People think that there's children living there, and there's no children living there. So that's why this is kind of a simple bill. It really doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but it does make it clearer what they do, and it makes there less confusion when we talk about the RHCs. So that's why we do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So some other really good news. 1795, that's addressing restraint and isolation of students in public schools. That bill is, I think it's out of rules and it's in second reading now. I got to look at the other page really quick, just a sec. I think I was working one page and didn't do the other. Yeah, it is out of rules and it's on second reading. And I believe it's on the calendar, which is great. And so, that bill is a step forward. It doesn't do all the things that we want it to do, but it does move us forward in the process of addressing restraint and isolation of children in schools. So that's a big deal. And this has been a number of years in the making. It's taken several legislative sessions to get this far. This bill, 2688, continues to has not raised its head, which is good. It's necessary if it wasn't in either the House and Senate budget. So we're going to kind of we're holding our breath and we think that's kind of a good thing. There's the bill we just talked about, the streamlining and monitoring of oversight activities for community residential, and that passed. Hooray, which was great. Okay, I'm going to switch to the other tab. And the purple stuff, that's kind of a note for myself. Those are the ones that are on the calendar, so that's good. So there's a bill about guardianship. It just is a cleanup bill. It's ready to go and it's on the calendar, 5837. We talked about some of these, the renaming, the transparency that passed, community protection bill. There was a long debate last night about the use of face coverings by law enforcement, and that bill passed. So that limits their being able, they have to identify themselves. But I checked in a few times and it was like an hours and hours and hours and many, many, many amendments bill. So there's this one don't know much about, but it's about personal protections and data. And it's also on the calendar. This bill is great. Part of it talks about disabled voters, and it creates electronic voting portal for disabled voters that's accessible to people who are blind and have low vision, and that passed. So that's really good news. So small steps forward to accessibility, right? The 5969, that bill, high school and beyond, if that bill is important to you, it's still to review on the House side. So if that's that's important to you, you might want to connect to the Rules Committee and say, hey, we'd like that bill to get to the floor. There's that restraint and isolation bill we talked about. Here's another happy little bill, 6268, and it maintains an online record of special education complaint decisions. So in other words, they can't just clear out those decisions over the course of time. They're going to keep like a dashboard database of different districts and when they have complaints. So people will be able to track a little bit and families will be able to figure out How many times has this same thing happened in my district? Emily.
I was chatting with my mom yesterday and I haven't had a chance to check on the one about the parking permits.
Yeah, I'll get to that one. I believe
Okay.
I think that one is moving. So let me see. Oh, the parking permits. I'll have to go back and look. There were one of them, I think one died and there's the one about the blue envelope. I'll go back and check.
Okay,
Just
I
to
just was curious because we were talking about it, and I was
conversation.
saying
Yes,
I
you have to
sure
renew,
hope it,
right?
I sure hope it passes because it'd make it a lot easier for those of us that have to go in every 5 years. So.
Exactly, exactly. Let's see. And also another bill, 2557, provide parental access to special education evaluation reports, which is great. So and that passed. Sean.
Yeah, I think I have the answer. Unfortunately, I believe the bill for the parking permit died.
I think you're right, Sean.
So I'm sorry, Emily.
Sorry, Emily. It'll probably come back next year. I think they ran out of time. Again, sometimes they just run out of time to vote on bills. Because I think
Well,
it
it
might have
was
even been on the
good.
calendar. Yeah,
It was a good idea, so I hope it comes back.
I do too. Um, there's one about providing districts and schools with a comprehensive behavioral health supports for students, which is great. It's on second reading. This one is still in rules about unhoused children and having access to FAPE, free appropriate education. It's in second reading, but still in rules. There's that bill that we don't like, that we think is dead. The bill, this was a DSHS bill that was important to them concerning medically tailored meals. It's in second reading and on the calendar. This bill, I know was a lot of people were following this one because of that young man out of Kirkland that was missing, or out of Snohomish that was missing and not being able to get an alert out soon enough. 6070 was supporting the recovery of missing persons. That bill is on the calendar, so that's a good thing if that's important to you. 2429, that's Rep. Callan's bill, and this is really about her big comprehensive plan around behavioral health for children and what we call Washington Thrive, and it passed. So that's really good news. And we've worked really hard to make sure that they include children with disabilities in that part. They weren't at first, but we're continuing to make sure that happens. Okay, this is the bill I was thinking about. It's not the same. The Blue Envelope Program, for folks that are neurodiverse, they can, if they're drivers, they can keep this blue envelope in their car. That explains their disability if they're pulled over and what questions to ask them. And that bill, apparently it's a lot of states have adopted this program, and Representative Eslick brought it forward, and it's on the calendar to be voted on. So that's great. Some of these are housing bills. This one, 2266, is also on the calendar about, I don't understand all the ins and outs of this bill, but the one thing that connected with me that I understood was this bill helps prevent, the not in my backyard thing around housing, that keeps people from being able to get housing. So it encourages permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, indoor emergency housing, and emergency shelters. And it's on second reading, so it's on the calendar. 2505, exempting certain former foster care providers from adult family home licensure. So those are children who've lived in foster care often for a really long time. And when they get to transition age, if the foster parent also has other children in the home, they would have to become an adult licensed as an adult family home for that child to be able to stay in the home, which is problematic. There's a lot of regulations around adult family homes that really aren't practical for just somebody that's really wanting to be a family. And so they're trying to exempt foster care, former foster care. And we think that's really good for the care of the child. And it's on the calendar. So that's great. There's a bill about housing developments at religious organization. It passed, encouraging that. Concerning property tax reform, there's something about rules there, and I don't understand that. I just know that Parkview Services was supporting it. The Foreclosure Fairness Act, that was a technical fix around really about paperwork and how many times you have to pay a fee or the tax on when you're foreclosing, and that bill passed. That funny bill that we're not too sure where we stand on about elevator standards in small apartment buildings, it's on the floor calendar and has second reading, so it could pass. It's kind of, they want smaller elevators, and there's concerns about, well, what about people that have bigger wheelchairs, or can they get, what happens in an emergency, being able to get the person out of the building. So, but on the other hand, the positive side there would be a lot more elevators, which make a lot more buildings accessible. So it's kind of a good and bad thing. So we're not sure, but it looks like it's on the floor. There's that bill that passed around streamlining and monitoring. The 5911, that's about the SSI payments that children who are in foster care, 18 to 21, would be able to keep their SSI payments. They had a disability, it would go into an ABLE account. That bill is in to review. So if that's important to you, you would want to contact the Rules Committee to say, hey, we want to see that bill get to the floor. Concerning language accessible public programs and state agencies, that also is on the floor calendar. Whew, that's a lot of bills, huh? So I'm going to go, let's see, we talked about that, bills. So I'm going to go back. Let's talk about the budget, and then we'll come back and talk about what we can celebrate and what we're worried about. And is there any questions about any of the bills at this point of time? Any bills I missed or you want more information about?
Kathy, hi, this is Layla.
Hi, Layla.
Yesterday I was looking and it looked like that requirement for caregivers to take an additional 12 credits was that of continuing education. It looked like that was rejected, that requirement. Am I correct in thinking that? Sorry if you already
No,
talked about
it's
it.
kind of the other way around. So the bill would have added it, and let's see, how does that? The bill would have taken it out, taken the
okay.
requirement out, and the bill died.
Oh, okay. So it remains.
It
The
remains.
requirement. Okay.
The requirement remains. Yeah. So
Okay.
that will be something that we will be talking about off session, I believe,
Okay.
and we'll see what happens. Once the challenge is that goes into effect. Is it June 2027? Is that right, Stacey?
I think it goes into effect January 2027.
So next year, and it's before the legislative session will be in. So it'll go into effect, and you'll have to, and the session hasn't started. So we were hoping to fix it before it went into effect, and unfortunately that did not happen. So it'll be a little more of an uphill battle once it's in effect already. So that's part of the problem.
Kathy. Okay.
You are welcome. Let me make this bigger so you can see. Can you all see that now? Okay. Whew, the budget. There is a lot of red ink on this budget. And it's impacts in a lot of different ways. I'll come back and talk about the things, the good and the bad around some of the stuff. There's, DDCS, all agencies are taking kind of administrative cuts, and that means they're limited in the travel they can make and the purchases they can have. So they're having to narrow that. So not just DDCS, but all agencies have those challenges. There was a cut there was supposed to be a increase for assisted living. And I think I don't understand it exactly, but it was called a bridge rate. I think it was like a step up rate, and they chose to not give that rate increase. I don't understand this piece. I mean, these are really technical things on the Senate side. Indirect staff and lease costs. I don't understand what that means, but there was some cuts there. Central office underspend. I don't know exactly what that means, but central office is, DDCS, and apparently they did not spend all their money, although we wonder what that means. So in other words, it still's a cut to them. Right. And it may be, people they didn't hire in time or other things. The House also takes cuts to case management. So, about $1 million in field services. That's case management. I'm going to talk more about this and come back to this one. This was a very concerning one. Program underspend in employment day and family support. And this is a big one. It's nearly $33 million. So I want to come back to that when I go back to the slides. But that's one we need to be thinking about. And also underspend in enhanced respite and overnight planned respite. It wasn't used as much as they thought, so they're taking some of that back. Enhanced respite is for kids with more behavior involvement. There's behavioral health consumer advocacy. I didn't understand that one. It was something that they were going to implement and they're just not going to implement. And I don't understand what that means exactly. And this one I was concerned about, but it's not what I thought it was. Consumer eligibility changes, enrollment streamlining. They were supposed to do some streamlining. They didn't have to, so they're just going to take the money back. So doesn't have an impact. There is about $500,000 for non-citizen programs that were impacted, people impacted by HR 1 that we are not able to serve anymore. So there's some state money, not federal money, to help with those individuals. Some good news, there's money for SOLAs. SOLAs are state-operated living alternatives. And they last year, they didn't budget for like their yearly maintenance, not the building maintenance, but to maintain the service through the year. And so they're coming back and fixing that, which is good. And then, we've had solo administrative reduction. So what happened is we had SOLAs used to be under the administration of DDA, and we know that DDA got kind of split. The community side is now over at Home and Community Living Administration, and the RHCs and SOLAs went over to the Behavioral Health and Habilitation Administration, BHHA. So there's two, right? And when that happened, they don't need as much administrative dollars when they split it out. So some of that's, they're taking that back and it's going over to the other, they're moving that around. So that should be okay. There was also, we're happy in the House and Senate because for 3 additional SOLA beds, not homes, but beds. in the budget, which is good. There was a take back reduction in maintenance and operation at RHCs. And there was in the, let's see, it's in this house budget. I think it's in the House budget. Or no, it ended up in the Senate budget. There's a proviso to look at community use of dental services at the RHCs. They have to do it within existing funding, so there's no money attached to it. So it's basically a study, which is probably okay. It was a bill earlier, although it did some other things in the bill, and the bill got killed. And then this is a proviso that's back in there, and it's tucked in the budget. This is concerning. They're taking back over $1 million from the school to work programs at vocational rehabilitation. There was some underspend, but there was some other difficulties. So this is really concerning. Is Aaron here? Do you want to talk about that at all? Aaron Dixon? Maybe he doesn't hear me.
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the implications of that?
Yeah, so you're talking about the school to work funding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say I have reached out to all of the players involved, and it sounds like at this point, it probably won't impact current services as they currently exist, but it may impact the ability to expand the program. Some
Okay.
of the kind of more specific details of that are still being hammered out, but I have been assured that the current programs in the current counties that are doing school to work should be able to keep going with the number of students that they're expecting. So
Yeah.
again, we're kind of taking this as, it's not good news, but in the big picture of kind of how things are going this budget cycle, it's sounding like it won't be, directly like cutting people out of programs and services that they're already in. So that's kind
Okay.
of what I know at this point.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's see, I'm going to hop down a little bit. There's some administrative things. The couple of big things, and we'll talk about them more. The elimination of coverage of therapies for adults on Medicaid, and a reduction in school-based Medicaid. The match reduces it from 50 to 25% of the state contribution for that. So it's not a lot of money, but it does impact. It's like $3 million. So I'm going to stop sharing. Then I'm going to go back to my slide because there's a couple things that we really want to talk about. So, okay, share. And then I'm going to go. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the good stuff first, because we need to talk about good things and things we can celebrate. So the good things about this budget is there's no cuts to eligibility. Remember, we talked about being very concerned that they would change eligibility for being able to get into DDCS or to stay in DDCS, even if you had services, and we were concerned about cutting. That was not in the budget. The cuts to early supports for infants and toddlers was in neither the House or Senate. We're just still holding our breath there. That's good, because we were very worried, because that would have been about a $30 million cut. The provider rates, we could not see any lowering of provider rates. Like they didn't lower, direct support workers or IPs or, employment or any of those. We did not see provider rates lowered in any place. There was money in I've got to think this Senate side. We talked about the comprehensive plan for DDCS that would come out of the Dan Thompson. So there is money in there on the Senate budget. So we're hoping that that ends up in the final. We're very excited about it. It's really an idea of like DDCS needs like a 10-year plan so that we're not just having to come and think about things every year and fight for things every single year, that they would know where they're going and what we want for the long run. So we're excited about that and really focused on community-based stuff. How do we strengthen our community and make it work for everybody? And so we're very excited about that. Okay, so here's the concerning stuff. That big underspend in DDCS on employment and day and individual and family services. Okay, when you hear the word underspend, it sounds like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad, right? It means they didn't use all their money, so we'll take it back, right? Well, when they went and looked there, even the Office of Financial Management, okay, that's the governor's office that really deals with the budget. They came back and said, wait a minute, that is way more than an underspend. That's an actual cut. And it would have really bad implications if they take that whole thing. It's $30 million out of employment day and IFS. Now, here's the deal. They still have to serve the same number of people that they have on the waivers. So if you have already been found eligible for the waiver, they can't take you off the waiver just to make it less, right? So what they would have to do is say, well, we have within that budget, our budget is tighter. They'd have to say, we have to shut the front door. We can't let anybody else in. We don't, because there's no room. We don't have capacity because we go over our budget. And it's deep enough, we think, that not only would they have to do that, but within their budget, they would have to start eliminating things that are not direct services to people. So that would be things like parent to parent, informing families. That would be things like Benefit You and our community summit and other things that are not direct support things to individuals. And we know that those programs are super, super important and really rely on it. And then worse yet, if they still can't do it, then they would have to go in and they'd have to go back to CMS and start narrowing the services they provide on the waiver. And that's when things could be very difficult. So that little kind of innocuous word underspend has huge implications. And we need to really be talking to our legislators about that. And I'll let Sean talk about that in a minute. So it had this, we all kind of passed that budget line and thought, oh, that's not, underspend, right? And then as we dug in deeper, it has a lot of very serious implications. We're very, very concerned. The other piece is that elimination of adult therapies. That's OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech language therapy. So, for folks that need that ongoing, for people with cerebral palsy that need ongoing physical therapy for adults, it's only for adults, it's not children. They wouldn't have any access. It was all therapies for everyone on Medicaid. If somebody injures themselves and they go to the hospital, you wouldn't be able to have physical therapy after that. For people with I have a son who had a brain injury who had extensive therapies after his injury. Learning how to walk and talk and all those things, again, eat, people that need therapy to eat, and to have skills to relearn occupational therapy, how to learn after you've had life skills after they've had an injury or some other incident. So these are really important. The kind of head scratcher is that it only saves them about $5 million state dollars, but they would lose like 30 million federal dollars. So it's a bit of a head scratcher. It's only in the House budget. So that's good. So there's a lot of place for negotiation to talk to be talking to your senators and saying, we don't want to see that in the final budget. I should also say the employment day and IFS underspends, that's in both the House and Senate. So that's scarier. And then the lowering the match for school Medicaid, that's concerning because that will take less money from schools. It's not a huge amount of money. Apparently it goes back to something they did before, but we worry about our kids really having, it's already hard enough to get access those things in school as it is. So those are the big things we're worried about and we need your help with. I'm gonna turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Kathy. That's a great overview of everything. So,
This is Sean. In a few minutes, I'm going to interview my friend Jossie, but first, I'll share my thoughts in this session and what you can do from here. So my big takeaways from this year is that even during a time where our state is having financial issues, we still can advocate, we still can come together, be there to help each other, and educate our legislators on items they could do this. I'm proud we got a bill through that protects records and artifacts at Lakeland Village to preserve history. I'm proud we made institutions safer by making sure they follow requirements to post compliance issues. That helps inform residents. I'm proud that we are one step away to make our schools safer for our kids with disabilities as we fight against restraint and isolation. And I'm proud of so much more. Yes, we still have a ways to go, but we need to remember your advocacy this year has helped so many people this year. Okay, so what can you do right now? First, you still have a little time to advocate for a bill to be passed on the floor, either Senate or House floor, by Friday, so keep your advocacy shoes on. Second, you can send final key messages to key legislators and your own legislators about your thoughts on the budget. Yes, the time is short, and they might not hear everything right now, but it's super important that they hear from you, and that they have you on record. Third, you can thank your legislators for all their hard work this year. Legislators like us love to be appreciated and respected for the work they do. So you can send them a quick note to thank them, especially if they helped get a bill that makes a difference in the lives of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Fourth, it's important to pat yourself and other fellow self-advocates on the back for the great advocacy work this year. You made a difference. And finally, with our state session ending, it's a great time to look at what's going on at the federal level. Next slide.
I should have said not only self-advocates, but all advocates should be proud of what they did and the family and people with support. Okay.
Now let's quickly discuss what's left for this session. On Friday, March 6th, all bills must get out of the opposite house, meaning if it's a House bill that is still alive, it has to be passed by the Senate by the 6th, and the same is true on the other side. A Senate bill has to be out of the House by the 6th. After the 6th, bills passed by both the House and the Senate will go to the governor's office if there are no difference. If there is a difference, then the House and Senate have few days to agree on the bill language that can be passed by both of them. If they can't agree, then unfortunately the bill could still die. Okay, also going on is the House and Senate budget leaders are trying to finalize the final supplemental operating, capital and transportation budgets. They have until the last day of session to pass these on both sides. The final day of session is March 12th, which we call Sine Die Day. Sine Die just means the legislative proceedings have come to an end and the session has been adjourned. Now, I will briefly add that most of the time, the budgets are agreed on by this date, but in cases where they can't agree on everything, the governor could call a special session to continue those discussions. That is rare, and it costs our state money to do so. And then finally, all bills, including the budgets, go to the desk of our governor, who then has the ability to sign a bill, to veto a bill, meaning it would not be law, or sometimes he won't do either, in which case the bill automatically becomes law after a period of time. For the budgets, the governor could sign them, but may veto parts of them, which means those parts would not go into effect. Hopefully that makes sense.
Anyway, I'm just stopping someone to see if I have any questions about that. Next,
Christy.
Christy.
Hi, this is Christy with the council. I had a quick question in the Q&A box. Is there a plan B for the budget in the event the income tax is deemed unconstitutional?
I don't know. I would suspect maybe have to go back to the table.
Yeah.
Can't do that, right?
Yeah, I think they have to. So they, first of all, it's a bill and they would have to pass the bill. If they don't pass the bill, then they have to go back. I believe the budget for the supplemental budget doesn't include the millionaire's tax. It doesn't start, I think, is it 2 years, Stacy? Is it 20,
I do
28
think,
or
I think the House relies on it to some extent. I don't think the Senate does. So they didn't pass it. There would have to be some regrouping, or they'll do that.
Yeah.
They'll do that ahead of time. I think the issue more is, will the governor veto anything and cause them to go back to special session? Because if he vetoes anything that they were relying on for income, then they have to go back. The court proceeding, whether or not they could do it at all, it will take some time. So
Yeah. So we'll see. There's a whole bunch of things that happen between now and when, right? And there's been, the governor and the legislature have not been in total agreement about how the tax would be used or should be used. And so it'll be get your popcorn ready and watch.
It's always interesting. Okay, next slide. Okay.
As far as how the House and Senate negotiate the budget, especially the operating budget. Each side, the Senate and the House, appoints legislators from their chambers to negotiate. This year the Senate has chosen Senators Derek Stanford and June Robinson. And the House has appointed Representatives Tim Ormsby, Nicole Macri, and Mia Gregerson to represent them. These are the key legislators to reach out to about the budget. You can still email your personal legislators, but they will not have the same power as these 5 legislators in putting together the final budget. Next slide.
I think I should have it, but I think a lot of times the 5 legislators decide the budget and then put it out for a vote either the day of signing day or the day before. So a lot of the other legislators don't have any power, maybe other than to vote yes or no for the budget. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, next time.
Little humor for your day.
Just remember, it's not over until it is over. The budget has not been decided yet, so keep advocating, keep sharing your thought. And also remember, the governor must still sign the budget. It's not over this year until that happens. Next slide.
Keep working. Okay,
Now for the final time this year, let's watch the Legislative Advocacy Tips video.
Hi, I'm Sean Latham, the Policy Coordinator for Self-Advocates in Leadership.
And I'm Jessica Renner from Self-Advocates in Leadership.
We want to thank everyone for taking your time out today to join us for Advocacy Days. We're here to talk to you about how to become a trusted resource for legislators on issues affecting your life. Even though your elected officials represent you, they can't do this very well if they don't know what you want. We want to encourage you to contact your legislators throughout session, but especially this week, about the issues that matter to you.
That's right. With so many topics for legislators to learn about, your knowledge of developmental disabilities helps them to do their job. You are the expert in telling your story and how it relates to decisions they are making. Here are some tips to help you make the most impact. Your time with legislators, staff, or aides is short, and your message should be too. When you communicate, sum up what the issue is and why it's important to you. Have a specific request related to a bill or budget item. Attack the problem, not the person. Follow up with a thank you. By doing this, you greatly increase your credibility and strengthen your legislative relationships. Bottom line, stick to what you know, which is your life, and how the issue affects you.
Here are some ways that you can reach out to your legislators. You can email them and their legislative assistant about your priorities. You can contact them through the legislative hotline phone number, which is 1-800-562-6000, and ask to leave a message for them. You can also share your opinion on a particular bill by using the hotline. We also encourage you to request either an in-person meeting with your legislators or a meeting with them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Please reach out to the legislative assistant of the legislator to request a meeting. You can watch the legislature at work on TVW, either on your TV, if you have the channel, or online at tvw.org. Another way you can participate is by signing up to testify at legislative hearings. For each hearing, you can sign up for the individual bills as pro, meaning you are for the bill, con, meaning you are against the bill, or other if you have concerns with the bill you generally like.
Let me now take you through the process using the Washington State Legislative website that can be found at leg.wi.gov. On the website under the menu, click on the menu item that states Bills, Meetings, and Session. From there, scroll down to the section titled Upcoming Committee Meetings and click on the link titled Sign into a Committee Meeting. Next, choose if you are testifying in a House hearing or testifying in a Senate hearing. We all have the choice to testify in person, testify by video remotely, or we can submit written testimony or just state what our position is on the bill.
After you pick one of the options, you will be taken to the form to register. You will need to fill out your position, your name, your email, your address, your phone number, and your organization, if you are representing one. It also asks you if you will testify on a panel or not. If you are testifying on a panel, it will ask you to fill in the names of the other panelists. The other box to make note of is the pronunciation box. If you want your name said right, you can sound it out in that box. Please check the box "I'm not a robot" at the end of the form, and then it's time to hit Submit Registration. Once you submit your registration, you will receive an email from a committee staff email address. Please read this email carefully and add the meeting to your desired calendar using the links in the email. From there, make sure you are ready to testify.
Don't forget about social media. A lot of legislators have accounts on Facebook and Twitter where you can comment or watch live stream chats and virtual town halls.
It's so important to stay informed and involved. Participate in virtual advocacy days. Sign up for the Arc of Washington's action alerts. Get updates at arcwa.org and follow on Facebook. Connect with local parent and self-advocate groups. And remember, change is made by those who show up.
Thank you for watching the video, and remember that video be found on the Arc of Washington website.
Please tell people that. Next slide. Copy. So,
I want to highlight two things that will help you going forward and help those you train to become advocates. Remember, finding your legislators is easy. All you do is visit the Washington State Legislative website, look under the Legislators section, find the District Finder, and then type in your address to see who your legislators are. Please do this with your friends, family, and neighbors over the next year, so we can get even more engagement in the future. Likewise, if you want to see who is on the various legislative committees, visit the legislative website, visit the committees section, and just browse the committees. Just note that these will change in December after our next election. So bookmark it. Next slide. Now, we wanted to share one more story with you, and I'm going to invite Josie to come off mute, and I'm going to spend a few minutes interviewing her. And then after, I have one last slide for you, so let's welcome Josie Schindler.
Hi, Albie. How are you doing today?
I'm good, John.
All right, Bill.
Hello, Josie. Thanks for coming today. Can you tell me your name, where you are from, and a little bit about yourself?
My name is Josie Schindler. I just moved into a nice apartment in Seattle, Washington. I came from Tacoma. I have lived in Tacoma for many, many years. I know my way around Tacoma, but because I'm new to Seattle, I don't really know my way around Seattle, but I am learning.
Awesome.
Josie, do you receive any state or federal services?
Yes, I have in-home care from an agency called Banchero. I also have housing, and I also have EBT food assistance.
Awesome.
What are the services you receive?
Oh, I knew you told me that.
Why are you services are important in your life?
So why are the services important to you?
Because the services help me get out of the house, help me pay my bills, help me remind me to pay my bills so I do not become homeless. My and my food pays for my food. My housing helps me pay for my rent so that I can afford my rent, because my job that I work at with Sodexo Live in Human Field does not pay, so I need help with paying my rent and other bills.
Awesome. Well, speaking of that, I want to help you.
Josie, do you have a job?
Yep, I just mentioned them. One of them is Sodexo Live at the Mariners. Go M's. They're coming alive. We gave them plenty of oxygen, so they'll be coming back alive at the end of this month. And sadly, but the Seahawks had to die because their season ended. But the Sounders came alive. And I also worked the Seattle Rain. the girls soccer. I work basically any event that's at Lumen Field that I don't take off.
That's awesome. So,
Why is your job important?
sure.
Because it helped me pay my other bills that I cannot afford. And it gives me extra spending money that I can save for fun things and trips I would like to do in the future.
Awesome. So,
What would happen, Josie, if your services were cut?
Well, I would probably lose my job because I would lose my housing. I would not be able to get out of, I would still be able to get out of the house, but it would take a lot. I would be very depressed.
yeah.
It would be very sad.
And it would be harder for you to be independent.
Yes, it would be very hard for me to be independent.
Um,
Why is it important for our state to support people with disabilities?
Because it helps them get out of the house. It helps them be in the community, and it helps them whether they have a job or not. It really helps them live.
awesome. And I think I did have it, we talked about it earlier. What do you want to tell your legislators or the governor?
Do not cut my benefits. Hands off my Medicaid and Medicare.
Thank you, coming, for coming. Thank you. I think that'll be next slide for me. Number 15.
Is that right?
Yeah, I have to go back to the
I wanted to end by sharing what you can do after session that will help all of us and yourself get ready for the next session. First, you can meet your legislators for a coffee or a snack. After session, your legislators tend to have more time to discuss things longer. This is also a great time to bring a new idea to them that they could work with you on for the following session. Second, just like I mentioned, this is a great time to think about new ideas for bills. So gather your friends or coworkers together and explore what we can do next. Third, talk to your family, friends, or community members about what's important to you. It's a great time to educate people. Fourth, remember to stay involved with advocacy organizations and groups in your area, and keep learning. And finally, take a much-deserved break, get your mind off politics for a minute, get some rest, and go outside. With that, I will pass it back to Kathy.
Thanks, Sean. Whew. It's been a session, hasn't it? And we still have work to do. I think we really need to be thinking about what we're saying to legislators. There's still things we can do, and we still need your help kind of to get us over this budget piece. You know, those three things, I think the things that are important to you that you want to tell your legislators. I think that big cut is the scariest thing that's in front of us, that thing that's called the underspend. The piece that happens when people lose support. I've loved that Josie shared her stories and all the kinds of support she's getting. You know, you think about pulling out the rug from under somebody, that they lose their support. What happens? That person goes into crisis. And guess what? Crisis costs a whole lot more than taking care of somebody in the first place, right? And I think that's a message that we can continue to share with legislators, that cuts cause crisis, and that really, our community, our legislature really has a moral obligation to take care of this population. And we need to be talking about that. This is a moral issue that we need to be, that our folks need to be prioritized. People have, whoops, sorry. Sorry, stop. Sorry about that. Okay, we need to laugh in the middle of that. That we really need to be focused there, and that they need to be caring for this population. It's no fault of anybody's own that they have a developmental disability. It wasn't something they chose. And we really need to be making sure that we're caring for our folks. I think we need to be reaching out and telling them about the budget, specifically, the budget negotiators, people on the budget committee, and then your own legislators, and tell them what you're thinking, what you're worried about going forward. I think there was a question in the chat box. Christy, do you want to read that?
Sure, sorry, I couldn't get to my mute button there. Hi, everybody. This is Christy with the council. The question in the chat was, are any groups talking about these proposed cuts as a matter of public health?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to frame things, that, our health is at risk. You think about the cuts for therapies, that's a health issue, but also the services that are involved as well. Jen.
Thank you, Kathy. This is Jen. So that was my wondering, because, the big picture is that our state uses the social determinants of health to inform public health strategies and interventions. And so outside of this community that continually advocates, and story by story, back to what you were saying, Kathy, there is this obligation as a matter of public health for this population, because 80% of the health conditions that this population experiences is impacted by these social factors. So cutting these supports directly impacts their health. And so I'm just sharing that out as, something to think about now, but also, as we're preparing for the federal piece, this is why advocates will talk very clearly that people will die without these supports. And so it's a matter of public health for everybody. It goes across populations, and I just would love to see public health people weighing in on this, because they really ought to be alarmed, just as alarmed as we are.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a lot. Do you folks have questions about what you need to do, or other questions about the session, or things that you're thinking about? We have time to take some questions, or if you have ideas of how to advocate in a different way, we're always open to hear that as well.
Sorry, I'm late. I totally forgot this meeting. What did I miss?
We'll have the video up probably later today. You can go back and watch.
Okay. Sorry, totally forgot. I've been so busy with other things.
Are there other questions? Well, now's the time to be reaching out to your legislators and, sending emails. You can't send too many emails, calling their offices, use the hotline. I think those are all great strategies to tell them what's important to you. The other thing around the underspend that we're particularly concerned about, we think it'll particularly hit hard high school grads coming out of school, because if they have limited waivers, they usually move people from the IFS to the Basic Plus. We think that's a place that we're really concerned that those high school grads won't have that opportunity to go on the Basic Plus waiver. So if you have a high school grad or know somebody that's, that's important to, I think that's another way to talk about that underspend as well. We did send a letter from the Community Advocacy Coalition to the budget writers, and we had, I think, 80 organizations sign on, which was really exciting. I can put a link maybe to the letter if you want to look at that. Let's see. And you could probably copy it and send it to your own legislator if you want to see it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Tammy.
Uh-huh.
I believe you already touched on this, but I was away from my desk for a moment. Regarding the 3 million, I believe that's what you said. With the underspent, will we not know anything until the 12th of March? Whether they made
We
it
may not.
right?
We won't know what they finally decide on. I think it's important for your legislators to hear from that it's it's over $30 million. So we can have to talk about that, DDCS is not really able to take that kind of a cut, and it would cut essential services. So we won't know the final budget till we see the final budget. And we don't know when that will be, and that's kind of frustrating. And then we don't know what the governor will do with it as well. So, Robert,
Actually, I thought it was 17 million. So it's 30.
well, that's only that's half of it. That's the state dollars. Then it's matched by federal dollars. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's right. I forgot. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Layla?
Thanks, Kath.